Hey, how's it going, wrestling fans? You got Razman's reality here. I'm your sort of leader of the band this week because Aaron Romanoff, did I get it right?
Ramadanov.
Romanov, sorry.
There you go.
I tried.
Yeah, you gave
His,
it a shot.
yeah, his computer's on the fritz this week, so I got slapped with hosting duties, but I don't mind it because I do my own show like almost weekly now, so it's all good.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess the big topic to lead off for this week is sort of expanding on what I did with the solo video last time because there's even more news that is broken in the same realm and is that is part timers good for the business, bad for the business? Like, how do you feel about it? Because, we had Rock returning this week and then we have the Lesnar situation with him not defending the belt, and then we have the Hogan and Austin rumors for Mania 31, and then the Punk rumors in
Mhm.
TNA kind of fits under that umbrella. So, what's your take on all that?
Well, I think, especially with The Rock, this past week, everyone was really excited to see him back, and um, it's kind of a hit and miss thing with me. Like when I first, no one expected that return, which is really cool because we don't get that much anymore. We don't get, really big surprises like that. It's always spoiled on the internet, and we're expecting it. But this was truly a surprise. I don't remember. I didn't see anything on Twitter that night saying The Rock's backstage or I heard that The Rock was in town, but they never said that he was going to be at Raw. Um, when he first came out,
Well, I
I
was
was
talking.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, dude. I was just saying I was talking to Ollie off air last night. Shout out to Ollie, Oliver Northgrove, because I guess he had like a double booking tonight or just got home from university. I'm not sure which one. But we were talking off the air, and he was saying that The Rock actually sent out a tweet right before he came out on Raw. I didn't know that because I've been a Tuesday morning Raw guy now
Mm-hmm.
because I have two other competing shows in Raw's time slot, and I
Right.
have Time Warner Cable, which sucks because it
Yeah.
only lets you have two
Wow.
turners if you're like recording and watching. So
Yep.
I didn't know that. So to me, it was a complete surprise, and it was definitely unadvertised, which is
Mm-hmm.
something you just don't see anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, with me, when he first came out, I was stoked. I mean, no one expected his return or his surprise return on Rusev. Um, as he was walking to the ring, I was like, they have to be real careful with Rusev here because they don't want to outshine him or do something that screws around with him. And then when he beat him down and tossed him out of the ring, I was really upset because I thought, you put all this time and this effort into building Rusev as a massive heel. But after I kind of let it sink and I let it kind of, well, how much did it really hurt him? He got a big rub from a big main event star, a big movie star, being in the same ring. Rock's return made, news everywhere. So in the grand scheme of things, even though Rusev looked weak, it kind of made him look strong in the sense of being in the same ring as The Rock.
Yeah, I kind of took the same thing away from it, and that's actually something Ollie and I talked about because everybody knows that's been paying attention to the roundtables and paying attention to my columns, which I'm going to explain that at the end of the show, like why I've suddenly dropped off the face of the earth in terms of written work. It hasn't been intentional. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everybody knows that I'm not a Rusev fan at all, but I try to be objective with it. And that's what I took from it is that it helped him rather than hurt him because it was just punch, punch, punch. It wasn't, oh, rock bottom, people's elbow get dominated. It was just punch, punch, punch. And there is no bigger rub than The Rock. And The
Yeah.
Rock is probably speaking as somebody who's not a fan of the character and speaking from the point of the casual fan who maybe doesn't really know the backstory of the character. If they want to make Rusev relevant, The Rock's one of the few guys right now who could actually do it. So
Mm-hmm.
if they go, which is a big if, because I don't think Rusev is anywhere near the level of The Rock in terms of star power. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's definitely something that they did intentionally. Like they could have put anybody in that spot. For them to pick Rusev was a little surprising for me because I thought they would have done something different. I thought you could have had the same effect with somebody else. But when I think about it, Rusev has gotten the upper hand on Swagger, has gotten the upper hand on Mark Henry. So I think this was WWE's way of giving us some kind of victory, small victory with this character in the storyline because, we've gotten nothing but domination from Rusev so far. Like I said, I saw a bunch of people on Twitter. I saw, I even retweeted Sean Waltman's Xbox tweet saying, you put all this time and money into a character, and then you have somebody just come out and kind of diminish that character in just one segment. I kind of saw it a different way, like you were saying, where if anything, it kind of helped him a little bit, at least, kind of give him some boost. And now when he comes back this Monday, you could have him completely dominate somebody like the Big Show, or have him just beat around the Big Show a little bit to kind of reassure that he is a dominant force, and that Cole and Lawler and JBL can kind of spin it to where after that embarrassing night, Rusev is more dominant than ever, more hungry than ever, kind of boost him up even more.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's as simple as you can put it, and I 100% agree. Sorry, got a little tongue-tied there. But yeah, not much more I can add, because that's what it should do, and now we just have to wait and see where it goes from here.
Yep.
As far as he's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know we're trying to stay away from the recaps and do more discussion-based things, but I do, while we're on the subject of Raw, I do want to ask you real quick, because I know your opinions were so strong 2 weeks ago on our last roundtable. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the evolution of the whole Cena, Ambrose, Rollins thing going into Hell in a Cell?
See, I think my tunes changed a little bit over time, because they've kind of incorporated Cena to where, and if you're not familiar with that, Cena should not be involved in this feud whatsoever. He should not even. It should just be Ambrose and Rollins, and that's it. No one else should be involved. I think they've worked Cena in to where he's not really affecting the storyline anymore. I think now that could all change at Hell in a Cell if Cena ends up winning, or it ends up being a draw between Ambrose and Cena, or something along those lines. Because from my opinion, he needs to go over cleanly on Cena at Hell in a Cell. Because if you have Cena beat Ambrose, I don't know where you go with Ambrose after that. I mean, you've been building this character up, and like you said on Raw, Ambrose has been the shining light every single week since SummerSlam, in my opinion, or since he returned. Since he returned at
and not a champion.
Not a champion. So he's been, for me, Rollins and Ambrose have been the only bright spot for weeks. So I think you have to be careful with him. You have to be careful with this storyline. I'm not opposed to the idea of having Ambrose and Cena, wrestle for a spot or a chance at Seth Rollins. The only thing I have a problem with is I'm afraid with how they're going to book it, and how they're going to have somebody go over in the situation. Now, I can easily see a double count out or a double draw or something along those lines where it becomes a triple threat match in the cell, because I don't see. I think they're going to do something similar to the Triple H and Bryan thing. They're going to have Cena and Ambrose be the first match, and then have the build up to the rest of the night.
Right.
I can't see them having Cena be in the first match of the pay-per-view and then not have him included in some other way throughout the night.
Well, but it would show that John Cena doesn't necessarily have to beat Super Cena, which would be the best thing ever possible to do.
Yeah.
But again, the question becomes, will they do it? And there's rumors right now that they're going to turn it into a Cena-Ambrose feud, actually, because they want Rollins to, be floating around the title picture. So if they book a feud, that's even more reason that you have to have Ambrose go over first, because you have to have Cena have more of a reason to want to continue working with Ambrose.
Now, I wouldn't have a problem with Ambrose putting this feud to bed at Hell in a Cell, putting it, beating Rollins in the Hell in a Cell, and then putting it to bed, and then that's it. The feud's over, and then Ambrose can go after Cena. I would have no problem with that. But then, where does Rollins go? If Rollins goes in the world title picture, I don't see how Lesnar and Rollins I just don't see how you leave that feud with neither guy hurt in some kind of way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, all the booking is up in the air at this point. All we can do is wait and see. But back to the original point about part timers. Now there's also rumors of Austin come back for a match at WrestleMania 31. So what do you think about that? Do you think it's something that he could pull off after all these years?
I have no question about about Austin's physical abilities. I think if I think if any wrestler, really works out and really tries to come back and be strong, I think, I think someone like Austin cares enough to where he won't come in the ring unless he knows he's 100% ready and 100% willing to put on a good match for the fans. Because I think the last thing he wants is come back and throw out a dud and throw out a match that is terrible. So I think if Austin does come back, he will know and he will feel that he has to come back 100% and ready to wrestle a good match. My only concern is, where does he fit into WrestleMania 31? You could have Cena. I mean, you have Cena Austin. You could have Austin Brock. There's so many possibilities with him. I'm just afraid, and this goes to the whole part-timers in general. If let's say Rock, best case scenario, let's say Rock comes back for a match. Let's say Austin comes back for a match. Let's say Sting wrestles. Let's say Taker wrestles. Where do you put guys like Bryan, Rollins, Ambrose, Reigns, Cesaro, Bray Wyatt? Where do those guys fit in now when you have all these guys coming back?
Well, I think Bray Wyatt would wrestle Sting, unless they went with Undertaker Sting. So I think that would solve that problem.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. If they do both come back, I think it's a given that it'll be Taker Sting if they both return for Mania. So it really concerns me that all these guys are kind of rumored to come back. There's no way that they all come back. I don't see Sting, Taker, Rock, Austin, all these guys wrestle. Don't forget about Triple H. I'm assuming Triple H is going to put himself in WrestleMania. I mean, he's done it last year. So I think it's really tough to predict how this is going to work out with the part-timers in WrestleMania 31.
Yeah. Well, and the big match that everybody wants to see would involve, I guess, there's no other way to classify him right now as another part-timer because he's been gone for so long. Everybody wants to see Austin versus Punk. Okay. I have my own feelings about Punk, and you can go and read them on ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com. Mm-hmm. Cheap plug there. Mm-hmm. But, my feelings about Punk haven't changed. So even if he did wrestle Austin, because I think it's a feud that he should have done 2 years ago when Punk was the hottest thing in the world.
Yep.
Not now. So yeah, it's all very iffy, but at the same time, it's kind of what Mania, I guess, is supposed to be. Mania is supposed to be the Super Bowl. It's supposed to be the show where you don't see things that you're going to see on any other show for the rest of the year. So they do kind of want to draw in those people that don't watch wrestling year round, which is the main question that we're trying to address here. Is the infusion of part-timers a bad thing because you pull in those fans from another era that think, oh, I'm getting to see the wrestling I love and things are changing from things I don't like right now on TV, and then a week later things go back to the way it was, and you can't keep those fans around. Yeah. In my opinion, sometimes it can do more harm than good when you have that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about part-timers, I think the right answer is it's not black and white. That's the thing. It's not good or bad. It can't be good or bad. It has to be somewhere in the middle, and I think in the right moderation, in the right, it's hard to say. I'm looking for a word I can't find, but just with a little bit here, a little bit there, you can't bring all these guys back at once. I think, and I doubt we see Rock and Austin on the same show, because that was one of the reasons why Austin didn't come back in 2011, because Rock was coming back and he didn't want to look like or play second fiddle to The Rock. He didn't want to outshine The Rock. So that's what I heard, that Austin didn't come back in the first place around that time period, is because he didn't want to, be in the shadow or in the spotlight or or share the spotlight with The Rock. Now, that could be either way. That could be right or wrong. That could be rumors. But I think that's a strong argument for Austin. I don't blame him, because I wouldn't want to come back when The Rock's coming back either, because it's just a little weird. It doesn't make sense. So I think with WrestleMania 31, I think it's either going to be The Rock or Austin. It can't be both. I think it's going to be one or the other. I think it's the same thing with with Sting and Taker. I don't know if they both come back. I would love to see it. I've said multiple times, I want to see Taker and Sting get their farewell match to the fans and kind of do that whole thing.
But then there's the whole debate: does the match have the same appeal because the streak is no longer involved? But that's a whole other debate that we can save for if the match actually happens.
Absolutely.
But I definitely want to see Sting Taker, but I'm getting more and more excited about the possibility of Sting Wyatt right now.
Me too, absolutely. I've been saying that for months on end, and after that little tweet that Bray Wyatt sent out about the Scorpion, I think a lot of people read into it too much. Even I did. I kind of took that as Sting for sure, but maybe he's just talking about some grand thing. I think Wyatt and Sting is more appealing to us as fans right now than Taker and Sting, because I think with Sting and Wyatt you have so many different ways to go, whereas with Taker and Sting you kind of have a limited area of where you can go with them, because either Sting's going to win or Taker's going to win. It can't really be either or. With Wyatt and Sting, you can build that feud for so long. You can have Sting come back right now and have that feud start to build up with Wyatt. With Taker, though, he won't be around as much. He'll do limited Raw appearances. He won't be around as much as Wyatt will. So I think Wyatt and Sting would be a much better feud and program going for WrestleMania 31 for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because, no insult ever to Taker. No. If you insult Undertaker, you're not a wrestling fan at any level. Mm-hmm. But Taker has nothing left to prove, and after the last match, I worry about his health and his shape. I don't know if I want to see him in the ring again. Yeah. At least not for maybe another year. He needs time to heal his body if he's going to do it again. So, do a year build. If you still want to do Taker Sting, do it after Wyatt Sting. Yeah. Do a year build. Mm-hmm. Convince Sting to wrestle 2 matches in WWE, not 1. But again, that's a whole other discussion for a whole other show, and we don't want to be too long of a thing here. So, moving on to something plugged in the column to let people know that we were back this week with Hell in a Cell coming up on October 29th, or is it the 27th?
I can't remember. I think it's the 26th, isn't it?
Actually, you know what? Let's just let the computer solve the problem.
Yeah.
Look at the calendar. But, with Hell in a Cell coming up on the 26th, favorite Hell in a Cell memories, standout moments from the structure.
Man, well, I wrote a whole column on it. The Masters of the Satan's Playground. Hopefully everyone read it. I kind of defined 4 guys as the masters of this match, or the standout guys for this match. And first guy was Taker. I think you can't have Hell in a Cell without The Undertaker. He has the most appearances in history in Hell in a Cell matches with 12. He's been in almost every single one, which is kind of insane to think about. The next guy I chose was Mankind, or Mick Foley, or Cactus Jack, whatever you want to call him. He's definitely somebody that, and the funny thing is, he's never won a Hell in a Cell match, and that's the funniest thing about it, because he is a pioneer of that match, and he has never won a Hell in a Cell match, which really shows that wins and losses don't really matter when it comes to wrestling, because you could still be one of the greatest of all time in the Hell in a Cell and not win a match. I mean, he's been in 4 matches, he's never won one. And then I outlined Shawn Michaels and Triple H as the other 2 pioneers for this structure, because, and that leads into my favorite match in the Hell in a Cell history is Triple H versus Shawn Michaels at Bad Blood 04. That was an Iron Man match. That was just a brutal match between those two guys, and it was the end of that feud. And I even outlined in my column that that feud was one of the biggest feuds that got me into wrestling in the first place. Or that was my, for older fans, that was my Hart Michaels. That was my Andre Hogan. That was my favorite feud of all time is Michaels and Triple H. So I think that was my favorite Hell in a Cell moment or match of all time. What are yours?
Well, I agree with everybody on your list. I mean, those are the four names you automatically think of, and then you throw a fifth name in there of Kane as well,
Okay.
because of how how he debuted, and he'll just be forever associated with Hell in the Cell because he debuted in the first Hell in the Cell match. But in terms of favorite matches, number one is Triple H versus Taker at Mania 28 with Shawn as guest ref.
Absolutely.
Like, it really was the end of an era, and I don't think if I'm picking one match, if somebody comes to me that I've made as a friend and knows that I'm a big wrestling fan, or somebody like that actually had happened today was somebody that was an older fan that hadn't watched in a while, and it's like, what do I need to see to remind me like why I should like this sport? And if I'm asked that question, the number one match I always tell people to watch is that match, because it's got everything. It's got the emotion, the heart, and the physicality all in one match. And I don't think you've ever had three better actors or three better athletes in one moment in one match than you had in that moment in time.
Absolutely, and I think that match catches some criticism on, and of course the infamous Bret Hart quote that he gave about this match being a 4 out of 10, and kind of crapping on the match. I think on Wrestle Talk TV or some interview he did where he kind of crapped on the match, and that's when he kind of crapped on Triple H's wrestling ability, which I found very very upsetting because we all know my love for Triple H.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and it's well founded. I'm a big fan of Triple H too.
Yeah, I just think this match catches some grief sometimes, and this match honestly is the last Hell in a Cell match that I really remember. You know what I mean? Like, this match was only a couple of years ago, but since this match, there hasn't really been a great Hell in a Cell match. I can't remember one.
Yeah, and the big thing about it is I think it's a match that people will still be talking about in 25 years.
Absolutely.
And that's the legacy of a match. And then, of course, the other match is Mankind versus Taker.
Absolutely.
In the infamous 3 bumps from Mick Foley that made Mick Foley an absolute god in the eyes of every wrestling fan in the world. And it's the kind of thing that you would never ever see. Like, Vince even said it right after that match. It's like, I appreciate the heck out of what you did out there, Mick, but I never want to see anything like that again. And you never have to that level.
I mean, that match was one of the. Once again, I outlined that in my column where, like I said with Mick, he's just the Iron Man. He can go through so much in all of his matches in the Hell in a Cell. He's been through so much. Even the one with Triple H, falling backwards through the cell and hitting the mat and breaking, corner of the mat, which is obviously a spot. But, I think he is just such a Iron Man. And, I always say that Mick Foley doesn't get enough credit for his contribution to wrestling and WWE. And this match was, just a solid proof of him going through hell and just really just pulling it out. And like you said, Vince doesn't want to see something like that. But, this match is played over and over again in video clips and packages. Him falling off the cell is just one of the infamous moments in history.
And people forget about the falling off the cell is played so much that people forget about later on falling through the cell, falling through the roof.
And getting put through thumbtacks.
Thumbtacks in the ring. So, I mean, that's why I said the infamous, I mistakenly said 3, but it's 2. The infamous 2 bumps of Mick Foley. That's what I meant by that. So, but in terms of the structure itself, I'm personally of the opinion, and this is something I have to ask you to close this subject out. I'm personally of the opinion that it never should have had its own pay-per-view. It
Absolutely.
needs to be a special attraction that
Hmm.
ends a feud. It needs to be a once in a lifetime feel. Having it have its own pay per view and then not even putting every match on the pay per view inside the structure,
Yep.
in my opinion, has basically killed it.
Well, I've always said that about gimmick pay-per-views in general. I don't think there should be a Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I don't think there should be a TLC pay-per-view. I think those kind of matches, especially Hell in a Cell, should only be dedicated to feuds that need it. I mean, and it really is timed very well, and I think this is something to WWE's credit, that Ambrose and Rollins need to be in Hell in a Cell to end this feud. And I think that's the only, I can't remember last time for Hell in the Cell matches or Hell in the Cell pay-per-views, I can't remember the last time a match needed to be in Hell in the Cell more than Ambrose and Rollins, because this I think without this pay-per-view, this match would need to end in that cell, because it epitomizes everything that this feud has gone through. Rollins continues to get away from Ambrose. Ambrose wants to get his hands on Rollins, finally, and I think the Hell in a Cell is obviously a place to do that. Now, if we can get Rollins and Ambrose one-on-one in that cell, I think Taker and Triple H from WrestleMania 28 needs to watch out, because that match can be the last match that we remember as Hell in the Cell, because that match could be incredible.
Yeah, it really could. But the question is, will they do it? Because there's some argument, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. There's some argument because of Ambrose filming his film, and then Roman Reigns being thrust in before he got hurt. There's some argument that this feud barely even got started before now it's going to end.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, it's been going on for a little while. I think Hell in the Cell would be a nice place to end it. I think so.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, gimmick pay per views, I 100% agree, especially about Money in the Bank as
Yeah,
well. I mean, Money in the Bank just belongs at WrestleMania. It's the
absolutely.
perfect answer to stuff we were saying earlier about if you have all these legends come back, what happens to the mainstays?
Exactly.
And if you had a match like Money in the Bank, that would be the perfect answer to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've
But
always said
now,
that. Always said that should be at WrestleMania, because having its own pay-per-view takes away from its impact. I think being at
and
WrestleMania
especially
makes it so much better.
yeah, and especially now with there being one championship again.
Absolutely.
It needs to have that luster of being a WrestleMania match.
Mm-hmm.
And they need, if they're going to do it, they need to bring it back at WrestleMania and then have this Money in the Bank winner be the first guy to try to cash it in at Mania.
Yes,
Is what they
absolutely.
need. That's what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so giving pay per view is definitely a no no. I wish they would get rid of them entirely. But moving on to what's coming up tonight, which is actually the 15th anniversary of SmackDown. First of all, can you believe it's been 15 years? And second of all, what are your favorite SmackDown moments?
Well, I can't believe it's been 15 years of SmackDown. That's almost as long as I've been alive. So it's pretty surreal. I think SmackDown has been one of the premier shows for WWE, but except for the last couple of years. I think SmackDown's really lacked since Edge retired and since Undertaker went away from being a full-time superstar. That's when, for me personally, WWE kind of took SmackDown as kind of their B show, and really, kind of just started not following the brand extension and kind of making it where everyone's just on Raw and on SmackDown, and that's really it. And I think that's taken away a lot from SmackDown's aura or the urgency to watch SmackDown. Now, for me personally, I don't watch SmackDown every week. I really don't. I can't sit through it because nothing ever happens on SmackDown. And that's
Exactly.
the thing.
It hasn't been used in years
Mm-hmm.
to advance storylines forward.
Never.
That's my biggest issue with it. Now tonight, I'm going to tune into tonight, but
Absolutely.
it's for nostalgia reasons
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know what you're going to see. It's not because I expect there to be any kind of advancement to anything.
Well,
And
I read some things on online, which I think Zach Fellows, fellow PWP writer and contributor, I think he'll personally love this SmackDown. Just that's a little inside joke with Zach, but he'll get it once he watches SmackDown. But as far as SmackDown, like I said, you know, like you said, it's kind of been just it hasn't really done anything the last couple of years. There's been no storyline advancement on that show. There's been no real urgency to watch the show, and anything that does happen on SmackDown, they replay on Raw. So it doesn't really make any sense to watch the show. But
Yeah, I mean, it's really a whole topic for a whole other show
Mhm.
when we get. Sorry, dude, I thought you were finished, but just I was just going off what you were saying. I think it'd be a good topic for another roundtable, or future column.
Mhm.
Maybe everybody that partakes in the roundtable can do like a mini column on it or something. Is SmackDown even necessary anymore?
Yeah.
Because right now, with the way they handle it, I don't think it is.
Mhm.
I think main events become more relevant than SmackDown
Yep.
now,
I definitely
and
watch
I
main
think
event more than SmackDown, which is
I think that NXT,
absolutely.
outshines SmackDown by 10,000 miles every week.
Yep. And I think
So
we'll eventually see the day where NXT, um, and that they kind of hinted at it during a column on WWE.com where they kind of did where will WWE be in 5 years, and one of the things was NXT will rival Raw for brand supremacy, which kind of tells me that eventually we will see NXT maybe take the spot of SmackDown or be on uh, a network television show, which could take away from what NXT is. Because right now NXT, and I don't want to get off on a side note, but what NXT is right now is it's like an exclusive club. Not everyone knows about it, not everyone watches it, but the people that do watch it feel like they have an exclusivity to it that no one else has, which I think is some of the beauty for NXT.
yeah, and it's the most consistent product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm even talking about indies, and people know that longtime supporters of mine know, and the people who have learned me since I came aboard here will also know as well that I'm a big component of the indie scene. I watch a lot of Ring of Honor. I watch a lot of pro wrestling. Know like a ton of great organizations out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on any level, with any brand anywhere, NXT is the most consistent and most enjoyable wrestling product that there is, week in and week out. And yeah, that's definitely my biggest fear. Is if it gets on regular television, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
it'll lose that because it'll be like too many cooks in the kitchen again, like we
Absolutely.
talked about a couple weeks ago.
And I think as soon as it does jump onto network television, I think Vince McMahon will want some kind of role in it. Where now Triple H kind of has free reign on NXT, so that might affect it. But let's get back to the topic at hand with SmackDown. Now, before SmackDown went down the tubes, SmackDown used to be probably the best show that WWE produced in the mid 2000s. I mean, at
Yeah,
some
yeah, there would
point,
be no Edge without SmackDown.
absolutely,
Just
there would be a bunch of different superstars that wouldn't have
yeah,
made it as big without SmackDown. SmackDown used to rival Raw in the ratings in the mid 2000s as their best show. So SmackDown used to be their best show, and I completely agree. The times where JBL was WWE champion, his longest reign, I love that feud with John Cena and his involvement in SmackDown. I loved where they had Brock Lesnar kind of be their face for a little while. So I think SmackDown has taken its hits over the last couple years, but from about when it started to about 2007, 2008 is when it started to go a little downhill as far as its product. Um, but
and
I think it's
honestly,
just go ahead.
here's something I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly am of the opinion of the brand extension actually. Now, granted, guys like CM Punk, and Jeff Hardy had great runs during that time period, but I think the brand extension to a certain extent killed SmackDown because it wasn't allowed to be just an extension of Raw and guys that weren't in the Raw spotlight that was their show to shine. When it became its own brand and its own thing, you know, it was more or less the same two or three guys on top all the time. And I think that's when SmackDown really started going downhill. And then when they killed the brand extension completely and just decided, oh, we're not even going to pay attention to SmackDown, like we've already talked about. But yeah, I think that's what started the downhill spiral, actually, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
was when they decided to make it its own entity. So agree or disagree with that?
It's really tough because I was always a fan of the brand extension. I thought having two separate shows and with two separate wrestlers, two separate titles, having kind of, if you don't like Raw, well, you can always tune into SmackDown. If you don't like SmackDown, you can always tune into Raw. So I kind of liked that aspect of it until about 2008, 2009, when it started to go a little downhill, and their roster started to shrink a little bit with main event stars. That's where I think they really got, they really hurt themselves, and it's not even their fault, but there just wasn't enough talent to spread out that way anymore, which is obviously the biggest reason why they don't have brand extension anymore, is because they don't have enough talent to fill each show. So,
and I also think that having one world champion helps people make better sense of the product. When there was two world champions, you didn't really know who WWE wanted to have as the guy because you had two belts and not one. So I think that's a big reason for it too.
well, I actually disagree. I thought, especially in 2000, I think 2007, where they had that Raw where they had Batista come out as world champion, Bobby Lashley as ECW champion, and then John Cena as WWE champion from all different brands. And then they had Undertaker pick which one he wanted to face for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the beauty of having brand extension, because you don't really know, and that's one of the points you made, is you don't really know who is their guy. And I think that's some of the beauty of it, is because they had Cena, Lashley, and Batista laid out, and they had Taker pick. And Taker, of course, picked Batista for WrestleMania 23. And I think with that, with those three guys, you didn't know who was the best. And that's what I liked about it, where you can have Cena and Batista as a dream match, world champion versus world champion. Who's the better world champion? I thought that was always an appeal for me personally, as far as the brand extension and why two separate champions felt good for me. I always liked that.
I never really looked at it that way, but that is a good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely makes me think about things a little differently. But to put a ribbon around this, because it's 7:27 p.m. Eastern, so we're getting close to SmackDown. So if you want to be able to experience SmackDown tonight, we got to wrap this up. So final topic for tonight is, there was a huge rumor that broke today that TNA offered CM Punk Hulk Hogan type of money. Now, in the sense that it's the same salary that they gave Hulk Hogan when Hulk Hogan was in TNA. Now, I don't think either one of us expect Punk to actually take the deal. But let's play devil's advocate and say he did take the deal. What kind of impact, no pun intended, would he have on that organization, do you think?
I really don't know. Because, and here's the reason why I say that, because I think the first initial impact, no pun intended, would be great. I think rumors going around, Punk is going to show up on Impact. He's with Impact Wrestling now. I got to tune in. I got to see what he's going to do. I think the initial impact of his debut will be great for Impact Wrestling. I think they'll be able to almost double their ratings just from hardcore fans going to watch Impact to see him debut. Now, a couple months after, do those same fans that tuned in to watch Punk that first night, do they come back week after week just because Punk's there? I don't know, because I think a lot of people, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, I think as Punk has been away from WWE, his fan base has shrunk because of the way he's handled his departure from WWE. I've always, since he left, I've not been a fan of Punk. This is a different topic for a different day. You and me agree on this, where I don't want Punk in WWE anymore, because somebody that doesn't want to be here or be in WWE or be with the company and decides to just walk out on their contract, I don't want them a part of WWE. And I felt the same way about Stone Cold Steve Austin before he returned, because, if you don't want to be part of the company, that's fine. But don't come crawling back when you want to be a part of it when it's convenient for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is that negative stigma about Punk. Because like I said in that piece about that I called Reality Between the Ropes. CM Punk is gone, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said in that piece, I was one of Punk's biggest supporters, but he's proven that he doesn't want to be there. And if a guy doesn't want to be there, then why do we as wrestling fans want him there? Because it takes away the spot of the guys that actually care and the guys that are giving their blood, sweat, and tears to the product week in and week out. Mm-hmm. Now, if playing devil's advocate like we're doing, if he goes to TNA/Impact for a second time, a lot of people might not know that, but he was there originally for a short period of time. If he goes back there again, because of his time in WWE, he's a completely different animal than he was when he was there before. So I agree with what you said. It would be an initial buzz around his re-debut. It would be the biggest thing that Impact had since Kurt Angle. But I think you would have the same thing you had with Kurt Angle. You would have a situation where this guy, as good as he is as an in-ring technician, isn't good enough to save our entire company. And I think the day and age of that being the case is gone. Because if that was still the case, where one guy can put a company over the top and make fans tune in that wasn't tuning into a product before, it would have already happened for Impact twice. Because it would have happened with Kurt Angle, and it would have happened with Hulk Hogan. And then it would have happened the third time. Sorry, I almost forgot it was the third time, because you had Jeff Hardy come in when they were briefly trying to do the Monday Night Wars, or their lame butt version of the Monday Night Wars. So it could have already happened 3 times for Impact, about a big huge name with a ton of momentum coming over there, and let's take the ball and run with it and compete with WWE. But Impact is just, I don't think, ever going to be that, because people have this stigma about it where they think it's a lesser product and they're not going to stick around and watch it get better. The funny thing is, even though they're like in between networks right now and everything they're doing is pre-taped, and if you read spoilers, you can know everything they're doing right now. Impact is as strong right now as it's been for 5 years, as far as bell-to-bell action and not a lot of over-the-top storylines, just a few here and there. It's the strongest it's been in a very long time, but people aren't watching it. So I get the sense that there's nothing they can do that's going to change the majority of wrestling fans' opinion about them. So yeah, Punk would give the organization a great boost, but he wouldn't put it on the map.
That's something that I think is not. I don't know if anybody can do that right now in WWE. I mean, maybe, and it's impossible. It will never happen. It will never, obviously. But someone like The Rock or Austin or something like that, if they decided to come back full time for Impact, I don't even know if they could carry that company to become something like WWE or stay above sea level. Because that company is drowning, and the prime example of that is they have their biggest pay-per-view of the biggest pay-per-view of their company coming up, and nobody even cares. That's the funniest thing about it. No one even cares about their pay-per-view. The biggest, their WrestleMania, I think they've even said that. Their WrestleMania, they said that a while ago, no one cares. And that's the funniest thing about it, because Impact needs, and the thing with the live shows, which I get so enraged about, is what more do you have to lose now? Really, if you're going to pre-tape your shows, don't expect great ratings. I'm sorry, but the difference between a live show and a taped show is
that's a whole other topic, and actually something I'm going to write a column about down the line, and that's a good topic for a future roundtable. I think pre-tape programs have ruined wrestling.
Absolutely.
There's no reason anymore to watch a show that's not a Monday Night Raw or a show that's, a live main event. There's just no reason for it. Because if you've got other things going on, you can go to the internet and find out what happened on the show.
Exactly.
And
there's no urgency to go watch the show.
Yeah, exactly. There's absolutely none. And why are we on the verge of the 15th anniversary of SmackDown in 20 minutes from now, and we don't have a live show tonight, or didn't have a live show on Tuesday?
Yep, that's why I said earlier the week.
So, I mean, yeah, it just makes no sense at all. And the only tape show, quote unquote, that's any good, like we've said, is the NXT. But that's because NXT's wrestling product is good enough to make people want to tune into it. And the people that can tune into it are people that already pay for WWE Network.
Yep.
So we're not going to pay for WWE Network and then turn around and read the results for our biggest, most consistent attraction to the network.
And the thing is, so, imagine if NXT decided to go live every week. I mean, that would just be, and we see what the pay-per-views for NXT, we see how big their pay-per-views get because it's live. So, it's really a big difference between tape shows and live shows with TNA. I mean, for me, I don't know what they have more to lose. I mean, if you decide to, say, we're going live every week, let's just do it. Let's go live. I know it costs more money to do it that way, and it's not economically smart to do that. But what more do they have to lose? They're already a sticky ship.
But yeah, and the thing is about TNA, like you said, they're already a stinking ship, so they have nothing to lose. They have everything to gain. And if they want ratings and they want people to care about their product, that's what they have to do. And NXT, just to, play devil's advocate, there's no reason why they shouldn't do it, because they're shooting at Full Sail University, and the university loves when there's live NXT. Like, I don't know if you've ever done it, but I did it last month during Takeover 2 when I was doing the Team PWP Twitter that you see on the bar here, and I've also done it on Razman's Reality, my solo Twitter. If you tweet Full Sail during live shows, they're like, this show is the best thing ever. It's the best thing to happen to our school, and we wish it was live every week. And that's coming from university people, not WWE people. So they know what kind of product it is. So I don't understand why it's not live every week. But we could go on for another 20 minutes about that. But yeah, I think that would be a great topic for next week, as long as nobody objects to it. It's like, let's lead off the show with more about why tape programs have ruined professional wrestling. Because there's just so much to say there about it. But favorite memories of SmackDown, though, other than time periods, like is there one particular moment or promo that sticks out in your mind at all?
For me, the moment that comes to mind as soon as I think of SmackDown and their great moments, the first thing I think of is Brock Lesnar and Big Show breaking the ring. I remember watching.
Yeah.
I remember
that would
watching
be my number one as well.
Yeah, I remember watching that night and just being in shock, because that was around the time where I was starting to, understand that this was, because I was about, I was about 10 years old at the time in 2004. So I was a little on the fence of, is this real? Is it fake? What's happening? And then after I saw that, I was like, whoa, that was not planned. That was I don't know what that was, but that was crazy. I remember going to school the next day, on the next Monday, and just being like, whoa, like what happened? So I think that was one of my favorite moments of all time. I still love Taz's reaction to it, where he swore and they had to bleep it out, which was really cool. And then Mike Chioda's face after he gets up and just looking around at the ring that's my favorite moment of all time.
Yeah, and then of course the other big one that jumps out in my mind is when, oh crap, I just had it and lost it. Give me a second. When CM Punk left SmackDown and went to Raw, and then cashed in on Edge as SmackDown's champion, even though that was on Raw. I was like, oh, it's SmackDown's champion putting over a Raw guy. Like that's something that sticks out in my mind as well. And then the whole Edge Vicky Guerrero angle was hilarious. It was one of the best times that there's ever been. So, yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger on SmackDown. Edge and Hogan winning the tag titles. That was great.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, SmackDown's had a lot of great moments. Cena, the rapper Cena that we all actually liked
Mm-hmm.
from the Attitude Era, or on well at the tail end of the Attitude Era, his career was made on SmackDown. That
Yep.
promo that he cut against Undertaker was in the graveyard, one of the greatest
Mm-hmm.
promos ever, in my opinion.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of great things for SmackDown, and I'm hoping we see some great things tonight. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we're right back to the same old next week again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
So yeah, anything else to add, Aaron? Anything else to plug?
As far as plugging goes, you can follow me on Twitter at Aaron. Aaron spelled ERON underscore PWP. Make sure to go check out ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com. Of course, great content up right now. I have a couple articles up there right now. Ryan Davis has been tremendous. One of our tremendous new writers that he's got a couple columns up there right now. Benjamin has a ringside Rust kind of worst of wrestling column going right now. Joel O'Brien, Oliver Norgrove, of course, all those guys. So go to ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com and check that out.
Absolutely, and I will be back hopefully tomorrow. The reason you haven't seen anything from me in about 3 weeks is because I actually have to use voice recognition software to help me write articles, and my profile became corrupted, so I had to rebuild the entire thing, particularly wrestling terms, because you have to manually program them, and
Mm-hmm.
because the program doesn't understand it. But
Mm-hmm.
hopefully tomorrow, with a piece following suit from you, hear my complete inspiration for it about why my guy Chris Jericho should be considered one of the greatest of all time. Why nobody talks about him the way nobody talked about your guy Edge. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to doing that piece. So like Aaron said, check out ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com. Follow us on Twitter at Team PWP. I'm at Rasman's Reality on Twitter. Oh, this week, tomorrow actually, is when it's due. I've got a wrestling related Blu ray coming, so I might do a video here or I might do it on my channel because we just did this tonight. And I don't want to overshadow this, but
Mm-hmm.
stay tuned to the Rasman's Reality YouTube for that. It was actually bought with our kickback link for WWEshop.com. So I
Awesome.
guess I guess we should plug that. Anybody doing any WWEshop.com shopping,
Mm-hmm.
uh, give PWP some love. Do that. And with that, I enjoyed hosting for the night. I always enjoy these week in and week out, and I hope you fans enjoy listening. And we are Team PWP, and that's what we do. And we'll see you next time.